Okay, so I want to talk about subject-to-subject raising, so that's exactly what I'm going to do, because I've just done a bunch of work on it, and I feel like talking about it to check that I know what I'm talking about, and also because I think it's really fun. This is for the phrase, John seems to have left, which I would like to thank my syntax professor for that particular one. As with all trees, they're built from the bottom up, and we are going to start off with a binary because that's how this tree starts. So we start off with the verbal complex little v bar, whose head is this small v and has a sister vp, which would have been left, but as we build up this tree, we see that this v has moved to be next to the small v sister, which it C selects for it. It gives us the verbal complex for left. So this little v then introduces the external argument, which is the dp, which would have been John to give us John left, or the event of leaving, so John leave. This is where this determinative phrase gets its theta role from, the event, but it doesn't have its case yet because it is supposed to get its case from the tense phrase, which we haven't added yet. So basically, it's going to move out of this verbal complex to acquire tense, but it needs to be in here because little v C selects for DPs as it introduces the external argument, which means that we can now add the next big V, which as we see John seems to have left. We've now got this left, we now need to add the have. That is introduced here as it takes this whole complex as it's an auxiliary verb as its complement. So that now creates this whole phrase which goes into this VP, which then combines with 2, which is the tense head, which we've been waiting for. As I mentioned, this is where the DP is supposed to move up to into spec TP to attain its case. However, this is the infinitive, which means that it's the only one that doesn't require something in its specified position, so it cannot give DP case, which is a problem because now we've got caseless DP, especially as it has a theta role but not a case. This is going to end up in an ungrammatical sentence unless we have something that can save it. So let's keep building, and we basically hope that we find something somewhere up the line that can give it the case that it needs. Let's go. We then have seems. That little s there means that it's going to have tense because that indicates in English that it's got present tense. So we need to merge in the verb first. Tense is merged in later. So we've now added this whole thing. Because seem doesn't take an external argument, there is no little v, there's no verb shell. We've just ended up in this position where DP takes it and then it in turn takes a TP. So this tense head has moved down onto the V. This V stays where it is. So now we've got this little phrase which has the present tense T head, which requires, as it is a finite T head, not an infinitive one like this one is, it requires an external argument in the spec TP, which is there. So at the moment, we don't know what's in that little thingy. So this T goes looking for a determinative phrase that it can give a case to, as it requires something that it can give nominative case to, and so it goes looking through this and it finds one there embedded in the embedded clause, and so it basically pulls it all the way up to here to then give it the case it so desperately needs and deserves, which leaves us with this verb, which is leave, which moves to here through big V to little v movement. We then merge in, for the first time, the external argument, because that's what the little v requires. That gets its theta role. However, it doesn't have a T to move to gain its nominative case. So we keep building. Merge the perfective auxiliary verb, have, which requires a tense head. We merge in this T, which takes the VP as its sister. Unfortunately, 2 is the infinitive T head, so it doesn't take this DP, so it can't give it a case. So we keep building. We then merge in seem, as John may have left the building, he may have not left the building, but doesn't look like he's here, so we introduce seem, which marks the matrix clause, which makes all of this embedded. Because seem doesn't take a subject, there is no external argument introduced, so there is no VP shell. However, it does need a tense, so we introduce a tense head, which is the present one. As it's bound, it moves from this position and it hops down to be bound with this V head. However, as this is not the infinitive, it requires a DP that it can give case to, which is John. So now John, as a DP, has eaten its whole salad. It's got its theta roll from here, it's got its case from here, and it's now happy.